Stop scrolling for a second, seriously. What you noticed first in that image wasn't random. Before you explain it, before you justify it, before you try to get it right, your brain already made a choice. And that first split-second choice matters because optical illusions don't just play with your eyes. They play with your priorities. Your mind is always filtering the world, scanning for what feels important, what feels familiar, what feels urgent. Sometimes that's driven by personality, and sometimes it's driven by what you're carrying lately. Stress, pressure, uncertainty, or even a quiet need you haven't admitted out loud. So here's the only rule. Lock in your answer. Don't change it. Don't take a second look and upgrade your choice. The point isn't to be clever, the point is to be honest. Now, quick expert note, without getting boring. Your brain loves shortcuts. It's built to recognize patterns fast, because in real life speed often matters more than accuracy. That's why two people can look at the same image and walk away seeing totally different things. One person spots a face immediately. Another sees an animal. Someone else gets pulled into a symbol like a key or a moon. None of those are mistakes. They're different mental spotlight settings. And when you understand what your spotlight is doing, you start understanding you a little better. How you focus, what you protect, what you crave, and what you notice before you even think. In this test, each option is like a doorway into a different default mode your mind uses, especially under pressure. Some people are wired to read emotions first. Some people scan for threat or truth. Some people instinctively look for a solution, a sign, a way out. And some people are drawn to connection, something that feels warm, meaningful, or safe. So here's what I want you to do right now. Say it out loud or decide in your head. What did you see first? Was it the face, the eyes, an animal like a wolf or fox? Or did a symbol jump out like a key, the moon, or a heart? Good. Hold on to that. Because in the next chapter, we'll start breaking down what your first choice usually reveals, starting with the people who saw the face first, and why their mind tends to move toward meaning, emotion, and the human story behind everything. Ready? Let's go. All right, so if you saw the face first, there's usually one big theme underneath it. Your mind doesn't just look at scenes. It looks for people, for intention, for meaning. Even if you don't think of yourself as emotional, face-first viewers tend to be naturally tuned into the human side of everything. You pick up on micro-signals, tone shifts, weird pauses, the look someone gives when they're trying to hide something. You notice what isn't being said, and most of the time you're right. This is often a strength that makes you feel quietly powerful, because you can walk into a room and instantly sense the temperature. You can tell when someone is uncomfortable, when a conversation has tension underneath it, when someone's smile is real or performative. People might not say it out loud, but they often feel understood around you. But here's the part most face-first people don't realize, that sensitivity can come with a cost. Because if your brain is always scanning for people and meaning, it can accidentally start carrying responsibility that was never yours. You might feel like it's your job to keep the peace, to read the room, to prevent conflict before it happens, to manage other people's moods, sometimes without even being asked. And if you've done that for long enough, it can create a pattern where you overthink interactions. You replay conversations, you wonder, did I say something wrong? Or why did their energy change? And sometimes, without noticing, you start filling in the blanks about what others feel without actually confirming it. That's the main blind spot, mind reading. Not because you're dramatic, because you're good at patterns, but patterns aren't always facts. So here's a small shift that can change everything. When you feel yourself assuming someone's motive, replace it with one calm, simple question. Something like, "Hey, are you okay? Did I misunderstand you? Do you mean that the way it sounded?" That one move keeps your gift, your emotional radar, without turning it into self-pressure. Another thing, face-first people often have strong loyalty. When you care deeply, that's beautiful. But it also means you can stay too long in situations where you're doing all the emotional work. So think of it like this. Empathy is your superpower, but boundaries are your battery. Without them, you drain. Now, if you didn't see the face first, don't worry. We're not ranking anyone here. We're just tracking what your mind prioritizes in the first second. Because in the next chapter, we'll talk about the people who saw the eyes first, what that usually says about awareness, intuition, and why some minds feel like they're always scanning for the truth, even when they're trying to relax. Now, if you saw the eyes first, your mind has a very specific way of moving through the world. It's like you don't just look, you scan. You're searching for signals, for honesty, for what's real. Eyes first viewers are often highly intuitive, not in a mystical way, but in a pattern recognition way. You pick up on little details that other people miss, a contradiction in someone's story, a tiny change in behavior, the vibe shift that happens before anyone admits something is wrong. Your brain is built to detect what's hidden, and that can be a huge advantage. You tend to learn quickly. You notice consequences early. You can sense when something is off before you can even explain why. In stressful situations, you're the person who sees the risk and adjusts. But there's another side to this, and it's important. When your brain is always on alert for truth, it can become difficult to fully relax, because relaxing means letting go of control for a moment. And eyes first people often struggle with that, not because they're paranoid, but because they've learned at some point that paying attention kept them safe. So you might recognize this. You can be sitting in a calm moment, but your mind is still working, still analyzing, still checking, still trying to figure it out. And that can turn into mental fatigue, like you're always one step away from switching into problem-solving mode. The blind spot here is overprocessing. Sometimes you don't need more information. You need a nervous system that feels safe enough to stop hunting for it. So here's a simple tool that sounds almost too basic, but it works because it speaks directly to how your body responds to alertness. Breathe out longer than you breathe in. For example, inhale for 3, exhale for 5. Do that a few times. Longer exhales send a signal to your body that the threat scan can soften, and when the scan softens, your mind doesn't have to work as hard. Another helpful practice: give yourself a closing statement, something short that tells your brain it can pause. Like, I have enough information for now. Or, I'll revisit this later, not right now. That's not denial. That's control in the right direction. Because here's what's true about eyes first minds. You're incredibly capable. But you shouldn't have to carry the world on constant surveillance. And there's one more layer. People who see eyes first often care deeply about truth in relationships. You value sincerity. You dislike games. You can sense manipulation quickly. That's why you're hard to fool, but also why you can become guarded. Which leads perfectly into the next chapter, because if you didn't see eyes first, and instead you saw an animal like the wolf or fox, that reveals something powerful about independence, protection, and how you handle trust when life gets intense. Chapter 4, 450, 500 words. Okay, if you saw the wolf or the fox first, your mind is tuned to something primal, protection plus independence, not necessarily in a cold way, more like you instinctively read life through strategy. You observe before you commit. You don't rush into trust. You'd rather be prepared than surprised. Wolf-first people often carry a quiet strength. You can handle pressure without making a show of it. When something goes wrong, you don't panic, you adapt. And you usually don't need a crowd to feel stable. You can be alone and still feel anchored because your inner world is active and self-contained. Fox-first people share a lot of that, but with an extra layer: flexibility. You're good at finding a way through. You think in angles. If the obvious route is blocked, you automatically look for the side door. That's why these viewers are often resilient. Life might hit hard, but you don't stay down for long. You learn, you adjust your boundaries, you become sharper. And yes, this can make you hard to fool. You're the type who notices patterns in people, who follows through, who talks big but disappears, who is consistent, who is only kind when they want something. Your brain is allergic to fake. But here's the part that matters. The same instincts that protect you can also isolate you. Because when you've trained yourself to rely on you, it becomes easy to believe you should rely only on you. You might struggle to ask for help, even when you need it. You might feel uncomfortable depending on anyone. And if you've been disappointed before, your mind may quietly decide, better to be strong than to be let down. That's the blind spot, guardedness that becomes a lifestyle. and over time it can create a weird contradiction. You want connection, but you also want safety. So you keep people at a distance, not because you don't care, but because closeness feels like risk. So here's a small practical shift that works for Wolf the Fox minds. Instead of trusting fully or trusting not at all, practice safe trust. Pick one person who has earned it, someone consistent, and share 5% more than you normally would. Not everything. Just enough to remind your nervous system that closeness doesn't have to mean danger, because your strength isn't in never needing anyone. Your strength is in choosing wisely, then allowing yourself to receive. And by the way, if you're enjoying these quick breakdowns and want more tests like this, subscribe and hit like. It helps the channel a lot, and it tells me to make more of these illusion-style readings. Now in the next chapter, we're moving into something different. The people who saw a symbol first, like the key, the moon, or the heart, those choices usually reveal what you're craving right now. Clarity, calm, or connection, and what your mind is trying to unlock beneath the surface. Now, if a symbol jumped out first, like the key, the crescent moon, or the heart, your mind is speaking in a different language. Symbols don't usually show up first unless something inside you is focused on meaning, not just what's happening, but what it means for your future, your emotions, your direction. So let's break it down gently, option by option, because each one points to a different inner need that's loud right now. If you saw the key first, your brain is looking for solutions. You're in a season where you want clarity, access and control over outcomes. You don't like being stuck in uncertainty. Even if you're calm on the outside, a part of you is thinking, okay, what's the next step? What unlocks this? Key first people often have a strong practical side. You're a problem solver. When life gets messy, you look for the lever that moves everything. The challenge is that you can start treating emotions like puzzles, something to fix quickly, when sometimes emotions need to be felt, not solved. If you saw the moon first, your mind is leaning toward reflection. The moon is about cycles, intuition, and what's happening beneath the surface. Moon-first viewers are often sensitive to energy shifts, moods, atmospheres, the unspoken tension in a room. You may be processing something quietly, even if you haven't fully named it yet. The strength here is depth. You're not shallow, you notice subtle patterns. But the risk is drifting into overthinking or emotional heaviness, especially when you keep everything inside. And if you saw the heart first, that one is simple but not small. Heart first usually means your attention goes straight to connection. Love, belonging, reassurance, closeness, emotional safety. You're likely in a moment where your nervous system is asking, am I supported? Or is this real? Or do I matter to the people I care about? Heart-first people tend to be loyal, warm, and emotionally honest. But the blind spot can be idealizing, holding on to a hope, a person, or a story longer than it deserves, because your heart wants it to work. Here's what these three symbols share. They're all about seeking. The key seeks an answer. The moon seeks understanding. The heart seeks closeness. So the real question isn't just what you saw first, it's what are you reaching for right now? And here's a quick grounding move. Choose one small action today that matches your symbol. Key, write the next step in one sentence. Moon, name the feeling you've been avoiding. Heart, send one honest message to someone safe. Also, if you want to explore this deeper in a structured way, there's a more complete test in the description. It's not more of the same. It goes beyond one image and helps map patterns across multiple choices. If you're curious, take a look when you're done here. Now, in the final chapter, I'm going to tie everything together, and I'll ask you to comment what you saw first, because the patterns people choose are always fascinating. So now let's bring it all together, because the real power of this isn't the label. It's the pattern. If you saw the face first, your mind naturally moves toward people, emotion, and meaning. You notice the human story behind everything. If you saw the eyes first, you're wired for awareness. You scan for truth, signals, and what's hidden, sometimes so much that your brain forgets to rest. If you saw the wolf or fox first, your instincts lean toward protection and independence. You observe, you adapt, you don't trust easily, but when you do, it's real. And if you saw a symbol like the key, moon, or heart, your mind is reaching for something deeper. Clarity, calm, or connection. Something inside you is trying to unlock a next chapter, But here's what I want you to remember. None of these are good or bad. They're not boxes. They're mirrors. Your first choice doesn't define your whole personality. It reveals what your attention is prioritizing right now. And that can change depending on what you're dealing with in life. The same person can see different things first on different days, because the mind is always adjusting to protect you, guide you, and keep you moving. That's why these tests are so interesting. They show you your default setting, and once you see the default setting, you can choose whether to keep it or shift it. So here's a simple reflection to close. If your mind goes to people first, ask yourself, am I carrying emotions that aren't mine? If your mind goes to signals first, ask, when was the last time I truly rested? If your mind goes to protection first, ask, who has actually earned my trust but I still keep at a distance? If your mind goes to symbols first, ask, what am I craving that I keep postponing? And now I want to hear from you, because this part makes the comments section feel like a real community. Comment what you saw first, face, eyes, wolf, fox, key, moon, heart, and tell me your country. I'll pin a few and reply with quick extra insights. And if you've enjoyed this style of video, quick, clear, and surprisingly accurate, subscribe and hit like. It genuinely helps the channel grow, and it tells me to keep making more illusion tests like this. Also, if you're the type who wants a deeper explanation, something more complete than one image, there's a full psychological test linked in the description. No pressure at all. It's just there for the people who want to go beyond the quick read and explore their patterns in a more structured way. All right, now be honest with yourself one last time. What did you see first?